It's time for another portion-controlled keto dessert. And since the hot weather is in full effect and everybody's screaming for ice cream, I thought I would show you how to make a keto ice cream sandwich. But here's the kicker. We're not gonna make up a huge batch. We're just gonna make up two. So this is portion controlled. So you could have one now and one later, or one to share if you wanted. So let's make this keto single serve ice cream sandwich recipe. The inspiration for this keto ice cream sandwich recipe came from Pint. If you guys haven't heard of them, they are a keto ice cream company, and they happen to be today's sponsor for this video. Their ice creams don't contain any added sugars. They are only around like 3 net carbs per serving. They come in a wide range of flavors, from triple chocolate brownie to cake batter. There's black raspberry. Those are the flavors that I use for this recipe, but they have a whole slew of other ones too. And they're a company that's based here in the Pacific Northwest, so I already felt this kindred connection with them. Plus, it's fabulous for me because they're pretty much everywhere in my local grocery stores. And you can check out if they're in your local grocery store by heading over to their website. I'll have it listed down below for you guys. Check out their store locator to see where you can find them, but you could also purchase them online as well. I'm gonna be using their ice cream today as the ice cream part of our keto ice cream sandwiches. It just makes it a lot easier to purchase a store-bought ice cream, but you can certainly make your own. In fact, I have a lovely recipe for the best ice cream ever. Click up here to watch it. I also have a bunch of different flavors on my website that I'll have listed down below for you guys. Now, this recipe is really easy to make, and you can make the cookie part in under 15 minutes. The longest part is actually prepping our ice cream because there's something special that we have to do to it. You just can't scoop it out and plop it on. We have to lay down our ice cream flat to get that sandwich-like effect. So that's gonna be the longest part, but really that only takes me around like a half hour. Now, the first thing that you have to do to prep your ice cream is to soften it. So you have two options. You could put this in the refrigerator so that it softens for a few hours, because you want it really scoopable, because we want it to be able just to lay down flat in a baking tray. Or you can microwave it too. So just put it in your microwave. I usually do it on the defrost setting for just like 30 seconds or so, just to get it nice and soft so that we can spread it out into a baking tray. Once it's nice and soft, it easily comes out, and we're gonna put it into, I'm just actually gonna be using a glass meal prep container that I've lined with parchment paper. And you wanna scoop it out into there, spread it out with a spatula, and you wanna layer it so that it's as thick as you want for your ice cream sandwiches. So mine, I did around like an inch layer of ice cream. You can do smaller, you can do larger, whichever one you prefer. Once your ice cream is in your container, we're gonna put this in the freezer to harden. It takes around like a half hour to an hour or 2 hours, depending on how soft your ice cream got. If it's completely liquid, it's probably gonna take a little bit longer. But if you just defrosted it in the microwave or got it a little soft in the refrigerator, then it won't take very long at all. So while our ice cream is refreezing into its new shape, we're gonna move on to our keto cookies for our keto ice cream sandwiches. Now remember, this is a portion control recipe, and we're just making 2 ice cream sandwiches. So everything is going to be made in a small bowl, and we're gonna mix it together with just a fork. You wanna start by adding 1/2 cup of almond flour to a small bowl, along with 4 teaspoons of coconut flour, 2 tablespoons of a monkfruit blend sweetener, or just use a sweetener of your choice, 4 teaspoons of unsweetened cocoa powder, 2 egg yolks. Now we're using the yolks only and not the whites, because we don't want these cookies to rise up. They need to stay flat like an actual sandwich cookie. So we don't want to add the whites, which will help them puff up if we did that. The yolk is there because we still kind of want it to be chewy, but not rock hard. You'll also need 2 tablespoons of softened unsalted butter, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and a pinch of salt. We're gonna mix this together with a fork until all the dough is combined and it's evenly mixed. And then I'm gonna take my dough and stick it in between 2 sheets of parchment paper. And we're gonna roll this out until it's around like 1/8 of an inch thick. You want it really thin. To help us roll out our dough onto the parchment paper, I just always like to slide underneath like a paper towel, wet paper towel, that keeps everything from sliding across, so you can roll it out perfectly. I also kind of like to keep my dough into a square shape, so that's why I've kind of molded it into a square shape at first before I started rolling, because you want to be able to punch out your cookies and without having to roll out more dough and trying to get the perfect shape. So try and roll your dough out into a square rather than a circle. Once your dough is rolled out, now it's time to punch out your cookies. Now I'm using a square cookie cutter with scalloped edges. You can use any shape you wanted. You could use a circle. You could actually just cut these out with a knife or a pizza cutter and cut out your own shapes. I just wanted to make sure they were going to be uniform, so that's why I'm using a cookie cutter. You're gonna place your cookies onto a parchment lined baking tray, and we're gonna prick the tops of these cookies with a fork just to allow for some ventilation so our cookies don't puff up. And then we're gonna bake this in a 325-degree oven for around 6 to 10 minutes. Mine took around 8 minutes to cook. It just kind of depends on your oven and how hot it gets. You'll know your cookies are done when you just kind of touch them and they feel solid. Then you'll take them out. These cookies are super delicate when they're hot, so you cannot handle them at all. You really need to let them cool completely on the baking tray before you gently lift them up. As the longer they sit out, the more they're gonna stiffen up and harden, not be like rock solid hard, but just that perfect chewy sandwich cookie. Now it's time to assemble our keto ice cream sandwiches. Our ice cream has rehardened in the freezer, and I'm going to punch them out into the same shape using the same cookie cutter. Place your ice cream that you've punched out on a bottom layer cookie and top it with the top layer. And your ice cream sandwich is done and ready to enjoy. You could easily make up a bunch of these just by doubling the recipe or tripling the recipe and store these in your freezer. Just maybe wrap them with some parchment paper or put them in a freezer safe bag or container. And then you can have keto ice cream sandwiches whenever you want. I'll have the full recipe plus where you can get the macro information down below in the description box for you guys. Thanks again to Keto Pint for sponsoring this video.